Welcome everyone to this presentation about the document Moving Forward Together, a Canadian Strategy for Disability and Work. I'm going to be talking to you about the draft strategy document and some questions we have for you about it. I'm speaking on behalf of the Disability and Work in Canada Steering Committee, Alec Farquhar, Maureen Hahn, Kathy Hawkins, Steve Mantis, Kathy Kapayeva, Ron Saunders, that's me, Emile Tompa, and Monica Winkler. The host organizations for the Disability and Work in Canada initiative are the Canadian Council on Rehabilitation and Work, the Ontario Network of Injured Workers Groups, Inclusion NL, and the Centre for Research on Work Disability Policy. The initiative has a small steering committee with representatives of these host organizations, and that steering committee is designed to play a facilitating role in the development of the strategy and in moving forward. We have financial support for this initiative from the Government of Canada, from CCRW, from the Centre for Research on Work Disability Policy, and from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. The goal of the initiative is to develop a vision and strategy for increasing the employment of people with disabilities that will inform and guide the efforts of governments, employers, and other stakeholders. The goals of this consultation are to obtain feedback on the draft strategy document, which will be revised in light of the consultations. We also aim to engage and consult a broad range of organizations and individuals, and to develop and strengthen key partnerships and relationships in support of implementing the strategy. There are several elements to the consultation process. First, there is a consultation web page, and it contains key background documents, such as the strategy document and an executive summary of the strategy document, and a link to the survey that we are using as a key vehicle for obtaining feedback on the draft strategy document. The link to that survey is available as shown on the slide. We are also holding regional and stakeholder meetings and webinars, and you can keep informed by signing up for a consultation email list, which is through the link shown on the slide. We are consulting a wide range of stakeholders in this process. First and foremost, we are consulting people with lived experience about disability. We are also consulting disability organizations and advocacy groups, community agencies and service providers, Canadian businesses, labor unions, provincial and federal government departments and agencies, health professionals, disadvantaged groups, which can involve an intersection of disability with Indigenous status, gender, LGBTQ+, and racialized minorities. And we are consulting researchers and academics. The timelines for the consultation process are: the survey deadline is May 3rd of this year. So please, we urge you to complete the survey and to do so by May 3rd. The completion of the consultation meetings will be done by the end of June 2019. We will be analyzing feedback from the survey and the consultation meetings over the course of this summer, and reporting on the consultations and developing a revised strategy document, which will be ready prior to the 3rd National Disability and Work in Canada Conference, which is scheduled for December 4th and 5th, 2019 in Ottawa. I'm now going to outline the draft strategy document, and I will identify some key questions that we have about it. Those questions are also found in the survey. The purpose of the strategy document is to provide a strategic framework for people with disabilities, key community stakeholders, service providers, employers, labor, all levels of government, and researchers that identifies collaborative activities to increase the employment of people with disabilities in Canada. The strategy is a voluntary one in the sense that the steering committee of the Disability and Work in Canada initiative does not have the power to make the strategy mandatory. However, we encourage governments to consider legislation or regulation where it is appropriate, where it is needed, to help realize the objectives of the strategy. At the 2019 conference, we will be discussing how best to monitor progress on the strategy and how best to implement it. Why are we developing this new strategy? A key motivating factor is that people with disabilities in Canada continue to be underemployed. Employment rates range from 31% among adults with very severe disabilities to 76% among those with mild disabilities, compared to 80% of those who do not report a disability. This is according to the Canadian Survey on Disability of 2017. Recent developments in government and civil society indicate a growing collective desire to improve this situation. Progress has been made in Canada on supports for inclusion of people with disabilities in employment. However, the United Nations Committee on the Convention of Rights for Persons with Disabilities observed that Canada does not have a comprehensive policy on employment for people with disabilities. How has the draft strategy document been developed? The document is the result of extensive discussions at a national conference held in late 2017, 2 federal provincial policy roundtables, and related outreach over the past 3 years. The draft strategy was discussed at a national conference in December of 2018. It is very much a draft. The document will be revised based on discussions that took place at the 2018 conference and in the current round of consultations. The strategy document begins with a vision statement, which is as follows. Employment throughout Canada is inclusive. People with and without disabilities have the same opportunities and choices in careers, jobs, and work. We are interested in learning whether this statement reflects your vision for the strategy. If not, what changes would you propose? And again, questions like this are included in the survey document, in the survey that we encourage you to complete. There is an alternative wording that was proposed at the conference to the vision statement, and it is as follows. Employment throughout Canada is inclusive. People have the same barrier-free opportunities and choices in careers, jobs, and work. The strategy is based on 4 pillars, that is 4 key areas of action. And these pillars are identified as follows. The first pillar is disability confident and inclusive workplaces. The second pillar, comprehensive supports for Canadians with disabilities. The third pillar, effective partnerships. And the fourth pillar, measurement and accountability. Would you propose any wording changes to these pillars? Which of the pillars are most important to you? Would you propose any additional pillars? Under each of the pillars, there are proposed initiatives. And in the slides that follow, we are going to be outlining the key proposed initiatives under each pillar. For each of the proposed initiatives listed under each pillar, we will be asking these questions. What is the priority level of each initiative? Is it critical, important, normal, or low? And we are also going to be asking, do you propose any additional initiatives for this pillar? And again, these questions are found in the survey. The first pillar is disability confident and inclusive workplaces. And these are the initiatives currently proposed in the draft strategy document under this pillar. First, to provide supports to employers tailored to their context, their size, their sector, for hiring and retention of people with disabilities. And these supports could include the following: evidence-based financial incentives, such as wage subsidies, a guide for senior managers on incorporating inclusion into performance management and accountability for supervisors, tools for supervisors to help them identify, respond to, and communicate about needs for accommodation, tools for coworkers to help them understand and support the needs and contributions of people with disabilities, tools for employers to elaborate and measure the business case for hiring and retaining people with disabilities. There are other proposed initiatives under this pillar, and they are as follows: to create a center of expertise on the built environment to foster inclusive design of buildings, to communicate how everyone benefits from universal inclusive design, to promote understanding that disability is based on social, attitudinal, and built environments and not on the person, to develop case studies of exemplary employers, and to identify champions who can develop and promote best practices and the win-win of inclusive workplaces. Again, we are interested in your view of the priority level of each of these proposed initiatives, whether it is critical, important, normal, or low, and whether you propose any additional initiatives for this pillar. The second pillar is comprehensive supports at the level of the individual. And the proposed initiatives under this pillar are as follows. First, reform the array of support programs so the system is client-friendly, coherent, easy to navigate, and inclusive. Second, to improve supports for young people with disabilities, including supports related to education and employment preparation. Next, to unbundle income, benefits, and employment supports. For example, to provide a portable passport of employer supports that individuals could carry with them as they move from job to job. To provide supports that can be tailored to the employment context and adjusted over time to the changing circumstances of the individual. To ensure that income support is sufficient to keep people out of poverty. For example, to develop an income supplement strategy that protects benefits for people when they can and want to work, and to avoid high effective marginal tax rates on people who become employed. Another proposed initiative under this pillar is to provide tools for people with disabilities to help them communicate with their employer while respecting their right not to disclose diagnosis, so that their needs can be met, and to address the stigma associated with disability and the mindset of some program officials that they need to guard against being overly generous to avoid growth in caseload. Again, we are interested in, for each of these proposed initiatives, your view of the priority level of the initiative, critical, important, normal, or low, and whether you propose any additional initiatives for this pillar. The third pillar is effective partnerships. Initiatives proposed under this pillar are as follows. First, that federal, provincial, and municipal governments working together in consultation with all stakeholders reform the array of supports to individuals so the system is client-friendly, coherent, easy to navigate, flexible, and inclusive, and to develop tools for employers. Secondly, that employer associations, leading employers, and unions work together to promote a culture of inclusion in workplaces. Next, educational institutions working with employers, community organizations, and governments to better support the employability of people with disabilities over their life course as they go through different stages of their lives. Additional initiatives proposed under this pillar are that researchers work collaboratively with representatives of all stakeholders to identify and address evidence gaps, document case studies of success, assist in the evaluation of new or changed programs, and communicate in plain language research findings that are relevant to the employment of people with disabilities. Also proposed is that people with disabilities are involved in all key activities, including these partnerships, to ensure that the development and implementation of all of these changes is informed by their lived experience. Again, for all of these proposed initiatives, we are interested in your view of the priority level, critical, important, normal, or low, and whether you propose any additional initiatives for this pillar. The final pillar under the draft strategy document is measurement and accountability. Initiatives proposed under this pillar are as follows. First, to develop an outcomes framework and an outcomes-based tracking system. Secondly, to identify key indicators of progress towards the desired outcomes. Possible measures of progress include the following: the percentage of people with disabilities of working age who are employed, job satisfaction of people with disabilities, duration of work, the percentage of people with disabilities who are above the poverty line, marginal effective tax rates on people with disabilities, the perceptions of people with disabilities about the adequacy of income and employment supports, and measures of educational attainment and transitions from school to work. Other measures proposed under this pillar are as follows. First, to collect data in a way that facilitates research, including baseline data on the indicators. Second, to identify and address data gaps, to create a repository of initiatives that have worked well under headings such as recruitment, accommodation, workplace design, and technology. To create a guide for the evaluation of initiatives at the program level and the workplace level. Tell stories of success linked to the idea for case studies under the first pillar. That is, tell stories of success that can demonstrate the business case of initiatives to improve the employment of people with disabilities. We also have a number of general questions about the draft strategy document. First, how clear is the language in the draft document? Do you feel that the draft strategy will encourage meaningful action? Is the draft relevant to you and your organization? Will it be useful to you? Do you have any suggestions to improve the clarity of the document, the action orientation, and its relevance? Is anything important missing from the draft strategy document? Again, these and the other questions are found in the survey, and we encourage you to complete the survey that is available at the link I noted earlier. To recap the timelines of the consultation process, the deadline for completing the survey is May 3rd of this year. We aim to complete consultation meetings by the end of June. We will be analyzing feedback over the course of the summer, reporting on the consultations, and developing a revised strategy document in advance of the next Disability and Work in Canada conference that will be held in Ottawa on December 4th and 5th of this year. Thank you for participating in the Disability and Work in Canada initiative.